If you want to level up your public speaking game in 2026, well, this is your episode. You need to listen to this. You need to take notes. It's going to be so helpful for you. If you're terrified of public speaking, also going to help. Want to know how to deal with nerves, get up in front of small, large groups, buckle up. I'm joined by my good friend, Ashley Fell, who has spoken on massive stages globally to thousands and thousands of people. You can tell I'm not the professional speaker here, but she is, and she's going to be much better than me. She is an absolute pro. She's done her own TED Talk. She's going to break down what makes you great at public speaking and what are some of the pitfalls you need to avoid. Let's get into it. This is a podcast about making work work. You'll learn about leadership, career growth, and how to navigate those weird work challenges. I run a HR consulting business called Boldside, where I help leaders build epic team cultures. If you lead a team or run a business and you think I can help, let's connect on LinkedIn. My name is Shelley Johnson, and this is Work. Ash, welcome back to the pod.
Thanks, Shell. Great to be here.
We're going to be talking about a topic that terrifies a lot of people. Mm-hmm. Let's just go straight in. Why are so many people scared of public speaking?
There's like a study that shows there's like a huge portion of people who fear it more than death. Like, it's wild. It's truly, I mean, look, I get it. Even though it's my bread and butter, I deliver like 50 presentations a year. I love it, but I can understand that it is a pretty vulnerable activity for a lot of people. And it is like you're putting yourself out there. What if something goes wrong? What if people judge me? What if I stutter? What if I fall down? Like, my name is Ashley Fell, and I'm like, that would be terrible. Or maybe it would be cool if I actually fell and my name is the pun, you know? So there's just like, it's a really personal thing. And I think oftentimes when we work, we can hide behind like a report or something we create. But when it's public speaking, it's you. And there's just a lot of attention on you. And so I can totally understand why people are scared. Like, I fully get it. And I have been scared too, for sure.
It's really interesting even how you say it just there. When you're public speaking, it's you versus when I share a report, someone could pick apart what's in the report and I not take that as personally. Mm-hmm. But if someone picks apart how I presented, it's very difficult to not take it personally.
Yeah, that's right. It's really hard to distance yourself from that because there's so much that makes you unique that you're drawing on when you're on a platform, like how you spoke, what you wore, what you looked like. Like, there's just so many areas that people can pick apart. This is a terrible way for me to start this podcast because I'm just sharing all the hard bits about it.
No, but this is the thing. It's like good to empathize with people if you don't like public speaking. Like, you're like, want to feel like we're empathizing with where people are at of like, what are the hurdles?
Yeah.
Let's then, because there are a lot of challenges that come with public speaking. I think it's a really good call out of there's more things to critique. Mm-hmm. And it's also partly when you're speaking, you have a distinct and unique voice and beyond like your actual voice, like as in your tone, how you show up, how you use humor, all the things. Mm-hmm. Can we just like think about what makes someone a great public speaker? Like, what are the things that you see? Again, you mentioned you do 50 presentations a year. And when we say presentations, we're talking thousands of people at massive conferences. So we're not talking about, 20 people in a room that you're presenting to. They're big, big stages. Mm-hmm. What do you think makes someone great as a public speaker?
I think what makes people really good, there's so many ways we could deconstruct, I'm sure we'll get into that, like the craft of public speaking. But I think if you can rebrand public speaking to storytelling, that is a big difference. I think great public speakers, they connect with their audience really well from the first point of their talk. How they even structure the introduction, like it's a really strategic way to actually get people's attention because you've got like only a few seconds for them to go, am I going to listen and lock in or am I going to scroll my emails on my phone? Like, that's for anyone who's trying to communicate a message, let alone in a dark conference theatre kind of situation. It's really easy for people to just sit back and tune out. I'm sure we've all been in those situations where you're like, oh, like this is not it. So I'm just going to do some work on the side or put my phone on silent and scroll reels or whatever it might be. So I think those people who are really great view it as storytelling, and they're trying to connect with their audience really early, and we can talk about ways to do that. And they take their audience on a journey, which is what a story is, thinking about, an evolution of an idea or how to change something or before and after, like showing people how you can evolve or move the audience or teach them something new. I categorize the public speakers I see into a few different categories, like inspirational is one category, content speakers are another. I like to think of myself as a bit of a mix of both, like more content, but it's still going to be fun and engaging and entertaining. It's not like I'm getting up and sharing my story of when I was an Olympian, which there are, public speakers who will share their story. But even how you bring in a story to a data-heavy presentation, which is often what I'm talking about, that's also takes a lot of, I guess, intentionality and craft to go, well, what can I make? How can I make these insights actually personal to the people that are listening to the talk?
So let's go from the beginning, shall we? Because I think if we break down public speaking and we go, okay, let's start at the top. How do you, because I think the intro and the end is so important, but how do you build connection from the get-go? Like, what are some strategies people can use to go, how do I connect? Whether they're speaking to 12 people and they're chairing a meeting and maybe they've got some exec team members they're picking out, they're really nervous, or maybe they're speaking to at a town hall of 100 people. How do they connect from the get-go?
My secret is build humour in as fast as possible,
which
is really easy to say and really difficult to actually do. But that is like my secret sauce. And I think a lot of good professional public speakers make their audience laugh. And I say this as like a demographer and a futurist who's sharing a lot of stats and insights, and also the ability to deliver something unexpected. I think that's really, really powerful. And when people look at the program and go, oh, Ashley Fell demographer, they're like, oh, boring. I'm like, perfect, low bar, low expectation. They think it's going to be a whole bunch of stats and graphs. Like, great. Because then like the first joke, which I try and land in the first few minutes, they're like, oh, okay, maybe I'll sit up and listen. And
she's funny.
Oh, I didn't expect to laugh in this. Exactly, yeah. Plot twist, So.
It's really interesting you say that, because I was with an amazing client of ours and it was after XeroCon, which you spoke at.
I did, yeah.
Yeah, so for anyone who doesn't know what that is, Xero's big, massive conference, right?
Coachella for accountants, they call it.
Oh, how good. It's so good. And accountants would be all like just loving life there. Yeah. Anyway, so you were one of the keynote speakers at their conference, and I was with a client in Melbourne, and they were talking about XeroCon because they all went big accounting organisation. And I was like, oh, how was it? And they're like, oh, there was this one person who got up, and as soon as they said the tone, I was like, I know what they're going to say next. And she was amazing. She was so amazing. Nice. Ashley Fell. And I was like, here we go. So I let them go on for ages because they're like, she was the best of the whole thing. And she talked about all the generational differences, Gen Zs, like millennials, like she was talking about all the things. And I was like, Ash is my friend. I'm totally like, it's like doing the whole story time. I'm like, yeah, but I'm actually her friend. So like, cool. I know her. And they were like, so nice. Oh my gosh, you have to tell her she was so good. But it was really funny because just to your point, they were like, it was such deep content, like deep expertise, but presented in this really compelling way. And it did make me think, well, what does that look like to take something that, let's say you're presenting a lot of data, and I mean, you do that, right? You're in research, so you're presenting like pretty hard-hitting facts and figures and numbers.
Yeah.
How do you present that in an engaging way? Like, what do you do?
Well, I think like if it's data heavy or if it's content heavy, I really utilize visuals because, and I actually got asked to speak at an event a couple of weeks ago and they said no slides. And I said, sorry, what? I said, oh, but slides are like, it's just a great way, like you can put up something and it shows the story like that versus if I have to explain something only verbally. But there is so much power as well in that. Like I loved doing it without slides. And I was like, I had to go back to the drawing board and go, okay, how am I going to craft this? Like same message, but different delivery. But if you can utilize visuals, especially with insights and statistics, I think that's helpful. And when I say visuals, it's not just putting up the whole graph. It's putting up like one key statistic with an icon. And it's the biggest tip I would give anyone who's doing visual storytelling is to use reveals and break up your slides. So one thing that I find so helpful is even if I've got like one slide with one statistic, I put the heading up first and I don't reveal the statistic. I just talk, and that gives me control as the presenter, because when you put up something visually, people can start looking and thinking, and they're watching the stat or the slide come up, and then you've lost them. Like I'm talking, I'm introducing it, I'm giving some context, and they're thinking about what that means. So the timing and the reveals, I think that is like the biggest thing for a content speaker if you are using PowerPoint or visual storytelling, to just break up your content, because then you're in control as the speaker and as the presenter of where you take your people, and they're not reading ahead and they're not thinking. The other thing with visual storytelling and reveals is, on occasion, I'll see someone like look at their phone or whatever, and I might be like, oh, like I'm losing them. And so then you can deploy verbal things that bring them back, where you can say, okay, and as you'll see on this next slide, or okay, now I'm going to show you, and I just watch them like look back up, and it's like, wait, what are you going to show me? Like that curious, inquisitive aspect of us as humans is like, oh, I don't want to miss out. Like deploying, FOMO tactics here, like
Yes.
the fear of missing out. They go, I don't want to miss out. So I think the visual can help, and people want to engage and they don't want to look away because they might miss something. So for me, my pace is also probably faster than your average speaker, because I find that also helps people to go, oh, okay, I can't sit back and not listen, because this is like entertaining and fun, but also there's a lot of information here, but it's broken up in a way that, people can actually digest and engage with it.
It's really good there about the reveals, because sometimes when you have something that's data heavy, or maybe you've got a lot of content and you put the whole thing up, like I remember a person doing a big strategy presentation in an organization I was at, and they put this slide up that had so much content. It had the 3-year strategic plan all listed out, and no one listened to a word he said, because they're just looking at this slide trying to process, okay, you 1, year 2, year, all the dot points underneath, and it's like so visually intensive that I'm like, I don't know what you're saying, because I'm just looking at this thing. Whereas when I've like seen you do your thing where you will have so much going on, like so much pacing to what you do, that it's like broken down to like micro parts where you do feel like if you don't pay attention, you're going to miss something really good at any moment. And it could be the surprise of the fun thing, or the like mic drop of a really important statistic that's like, holy crap, I did not know that. And so I love that. I think the simplicity of like mastering your slides and having more, like potentially heaps more of them, but you move really fast through them. Is that kind of your strategy and how you do it?
Totally. And the critics will come and they'll say, oh, like 50 slides for a 20-minute talk, like death by PowerPoint. But they're 50 slides because they're visual and they're engaging. I think if you had 10 slides that were text heavy, that's death by PowerPoint.
Yes.
Like you could have less slides, but they're lower quality. But even if you have text slides, again, like break up the dot points into reveals. Don't put them all up, because like you said with the strategic plan example, if your work or your part is more impacted by section 5, you're off reading section 5, but the presenter's talking about section 1. Like you're just kind of going to where you think it's most relevant. So definitely I think that visual storytelling piece, those reveals, that humour as well, even in the midst of some of those sections. Like I'm always presenting new insight, so it's never like the exact same talk, which is interesting because, again, like I'll be like, okay, like section 1's going to be this, section 2 here I'm going to bring in a new component, and I'll be like on stage and I'm like, even for me as a presenter, I'm like, oh, there's so many stats here, like I need I view it as like comic relief, like in a movie or in a thriller. You know how like someone will make a joke and you're like, oh, like, because you just need like a bit of lightness and fun in the midst of the heavy. And so even when I'm presenting, I'm like clocking it. I'm like, okay, like I need something here, because even for me as a researcher, like it's feeling like a lot. So just thinking about even that and where those points are. Again, it's like storytelling where you go, what's the high? Okay, what's the joke? Like when are we going back into the heaviness? I think it just helps give your audience a bit of a break from, you know, the sameness of, say, lots of stats in my case.
It's really cool hearing you talk about the highs and lows that you're taking people on, like, and maybe a better way to put it is light and shade, like in a presentation in order to engage them. And I know you use elements of surprise. I'm just thinking when you said like, when something's heavy, like let's say you're an accountant and you're presenting, you know, the Q2 results and you want to engage people in a really cool way and not just present the boring old, this is the update. It reminded me of when something's heavy. Did you watch Handmaid's Tale?
Yeah.
I watched maybe season 1 and I couldn't do it. I was like, it's too heavy.
Yeah.
There's not enough light and shade. Like, whereas like it had the heaviness of like Game of Thrones had these so many hectic elements to it, but it had heaps of humor. Like I think about like Tyrion and the Hound, and like there was just all these moments of like injections of light and shade that made it more, you could endure those heavy moments. And I know this is a weird example, but like, I do think that if your content is not innately interesting, you have to create stories that bring it to life.
Totally.
Are there ways and strategies you do that? Because when you're like, some people are just naturally funny and some people need to find a way to weave humor or ways of engaging or interacting with people in. What are some strategies that you use or that you've seen people use when it comes to injecting light, engaging or humor into their presenting?
Yeah, I mean, I will say it's not an easy thing to do. Like you said, especially when you don't consider yourself to be naturally funny or that sort of thing. But I think there are definitely strategies and ways. The things that I deploy are, again, like using visual slides to kind of drop in even like a meme here or there. Like, that's very millennial, I know, but like it gets the joke. It gets the humor across. People can see that. And again, it's revealing it like right after a statistic or a presentation. It's like, oh, you know, cost of living crisis, it's pretty rough out there. Like I'll share some insights about how Australians are coping with that. And then the next slide, it's like sometimes it feels like this. And then there's a meme and it's like, I think one of them we use is, I don't want to party like it's 1999. I want to go grocery shopping like it's 1999. And it's a bit corny and it's a bit silly, but everyone's like, oh yeah, like, yeah, I know, I get it. It's tough out there in this economy, you know? And so even just that, where it's like a breath or a story is really good. You know, just looking for different ways to engage people. And I have tried things as well, of course, that don't translate, or sometimes it's also the audience. Like if they're a tough audience, that can be really difficult. One of the insights that not insights, but one of the strategies I have is in almost every presentation I deliver, I start by introducing myself really briefly. And there's actually a few different ways that people structure introductions as well, which I can come back to. But sometimes, you know, I'll say, oh, you know, I'm Ashley Fell and I'm a futurist and a demographer. And often people think, oh, that's crystal ball, but it's more like this. And then it's a slide of Steve Carell from Anchorman with glasses on and a banana. He looks really nerdy. And everyone's like, oh, that's so funny. Oh, okay, she doesn't take herself too seriously. And even thinking about that for me, like when it's like a demographer or, you know, a social researcher, people are thinking like, oh, she probably thinks she's superior but I'm just everyday Ashley, you know, like I want to connect to the audience and make them connect to me and make them feel relaxed rather than I'm going to come in and, you know, just explain a whole bunch of statistics that will make you feel irrelevant or outdated or like not smart enough. But it's actually, again, like that self-deprecating humor is what I'm trying to say. And Aussies love that. And I think that's a really easy entry point for a lot of us as well. And it's taken time as well to refine, to get that wording right, to get that messaging right. And for me, it's an exercise in resilience where you're like, okay, that didn't work or that timing didn't work. I got to go back and workshop that next time. I'm going to change it or do X, Y, Z. So there are a few different ways that you can kind of deploy it if you're not like a natural sort of like funny person.
Like us.
Like us, exactly.
Someone said to me the other day, they're like, you are not funny. And I was like, excuse me. Excuse me. Like, I fundamentally disagree. But anyway, that's an aside. Let's talk about humour for a sec, and let's talk about this. I've earmarked a couple of things. So humour, I just want to talk about self-deprecation versus sarcasm, because I think it's a really important distinction. But humour, I find when you're like doing any form of presenting, that intro where I love you explaining your intro and like creating that relatability through humour and self-deprecation, showing the Anchorman photo of Steve Carell. Because I think humour does two things. It relaxes the audience and getting them to laugh. It's like that serotonin or like relief of like, oh, cool, this is going to be sweet.
Yeah.
But it also relaxes you as the speaker. Like I always feel like it disarms some of those levels of nerves that are unhelpful.
Yeah.
Do you find that the joke or something funny in the opening, it gives you that little bit of, oh, I'm okay here?
Totally. I love that word disarm. It disarms your audience. It disarms you as well. And it gives you that like confidence boost to go, okay, like this has started well. This is going well. Like let's go. It gives you that. Because sometimes, you know, if the pre-keynote ritual hasn't gone to plan, or I've been more stressed or I've rushed, like, and then it can just get, the talk can almost get away from you, which sounds weird to say because you're the one in control and delivering it. But if you can just, have that moment where people are engaging with you and there's feedback and just hearing their laughter as well. Like everyone wants to be funny. Everyone wants to make other people laugh. Like it's such a like pat on the back moment where you're like, oh, like they laughed at that. I love that. And then, like you said, that gives you that boost to then get into the content as well. So I think it's good for both perspectives, like your own confidence, but then also your audience, because they relaxed, they like you, and then they're open to actually hearing to what else you have to say to them.
So then if we think about the difference between self-deprecation and sarcasm, because I think where people go wrong with humour is I think sarcasm is really unhelpful.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts on how, like, where you've seen humour go wrong?
Yeah. So many.
Where do we begin?
I love that distinction, though, in terms of I feel like self-deprecating is about me, whereas sarcasm is more often than not about someone else and casting shade on someone else. And sarcasm is really dangerous territory because you can offend really easily. And I think like one thing that I see happen a lot is when something goes wrong in a presentation and like the speaker will obviously be a bit rattled and then they make like a snarky or sarcastic comment about like the AV team, or like they go off script a bit and it's like, whoa, like this is getting like a little bit awkward now and a bit like pointed and targeted. Whereas again, if you can be self-deprecating, which also takes a level of humility to like put it back on yourself. I think that is such an important thing because when you're speaking, you're leading the energy of the room, and I've felt that and I've noticed that. And it might sound obvious to say, but because I've got a flow. When you're in flow, like it's really easy to do that. But when something happens, and there's so many things that can happen, one of the funniest things that happened to me was, this was quite early on in my speaking career, is I was speaking to a room and then like they were looking at me, but they could look to the left and there was like a huge building being demolished by like an excavator. And I was like, how do I compete with that? Like that is, I just wanted to look as well. And I was like, no one told me how to deal with this. All right. And so even when things go wrong, now we're getting into things go wrong, not even about the sarcasm point, but I think as well, again, it's just so situation dependent. But what I try and do is when little things go wrong, I try to not bring attention to them. Because so often, like if you go, oh, like that slide didn't work, or like the audience don't know, but you've just alerted them to something not happening. But when it's a building being demolished, like it'd be weird to not acknowledge that. Do you know what I mean? And so again, like that's also really difficult. And the reason I guess I link it to sarcasm is because that's where you go off script and you're just responding to something happening in the moment. And that's where maybe like how your week has gone or how you're feeling can kind of come through in the presentation. And And so, yeah, I think just err on the side of self-deprecating because that is definitely safer. And again, I think it does point to hopefully your audience that you don't take yourself too seriously, that you are humble rather than casting shade on someone or something else, in whether that's, about something going wrong or not.
Can we talk about AV? This is going to be really tactical, and I've got so many questions to ask, but like AV, because this is a really common thing that'll go wrong. And it's like you prepare for your talk or whatever you're doing, and you practice with the slides and you've rehearsed and you've listened back to yourself talking and doing all these things that like help you get better. But you don't necessarily prepare for the things that go wrong. And I feel like we should be prepping for those. Let's just focus on how do we handle when things go wrong? Like, so AV, for example, goes wrong. Do you have strategies that you've kind of prepped for of what could you do in the moment if, like, for whatever reason, the clicker stops working, you've got no slides?
Yep. I had my clicker stop. It had actually only happened a couple of times, but it happened at an event this year, and it was so funny. It was at a dinner event, and I was like, there was just so many AV problems even before I got on that I was like, this is not going to go well. And it was funny because the clicker stopped working, and so one of the attendees, who I'm now like good friends with on LinkedIn because he like saved me so much, he like sat at the back of the room and like changed my slides and I've never met the man before, by the way, this encounter, and then took my verbal cues, and of like 50 slides, I was like, and as you'll see on the next slide, and he kind of got to know me, but that was a situation where I was like, I either go no slides or try and get him like, and he offered, someone was like, he could change the slides for you. But there's a photo of him sitting at the back of the room with like a glass of wine on the floor, like with the computer, because it was like a dinner networking event. It wasn't your classic like conference in a big AV setup, which is why so many things went wrong. So there's that option to just find a solution and see if you can make it work. And I felt confident in doing that because I'm like, the slides are going to elevate it so much, especially when it's a dinner keynote and there's alcohol involved. And I'm like, okay, let's just try.
The group's rowdy
Group's
already.
rowdy, exactly. And a lot of my humour is built into the slides, which is where it's like that's going to be a bit trickier. But I think one thing I need to do is probably just prepare. I have heard of situations, like one example is a fellow speaker that I know spoke at an event and there was a blackout. And like they were just like, well, like it was like a candlelight dinner or something, and they just got up and had to deliver more of like a speech, so to speak. So I think being prepared for those situations, knowing where you can, do other things. And for me, what's probably more likely to go wrong is that like I don't need notes, but I need a foldback monitor
to see the next slide. Yeah, so with
the presenter view. And so I've got my workaround, because sometimes you'll get there even if in a briefing call and they're just like, no, it's duplicated, or there's no foldback monitor, which is terrible because you're always like looking behind you. But I just take my laptop up, which can act as a bit of an iPad, put on a lectern, and then I can just scroll through
where you're at.
See where I'm at, see where I'm going. When I did the TED Talk, there was no presenter view. I had to like rehearse and learn all the sequences for that 17-minute talk. So that was a lot of
what you pretty much get gonged off if you go over. Yeah.
Exactly. And then I made mistakes in that too. But again, I didn't alert the audience and no one is the wiser. So I think that's definitely a learning. But like, for example, oftentimes I'll be at the back of the room and I'm like, oh, can I get the presenter view? They're like, oh, yep, no problem. And I'm like, great, don't take my laptop up because I trust them. I get up, there's no presenter view. So what I can sometimes do, and I think this takes a bit of flexibility and being on the fly, is just throw the room into a discussion question, run off stage, ask, can they do it? Yes, no. If not, bring my laptop up. Like there's just, if you can be adaptive and if you can have the confidence to just go, this is a keynote, not a workshop, but I'm going to throw to a discussion question or say, what generation is everyone in? Talk to the person next to you and then quickly go off. And it's just being able to kind of work on the fly and fill the time. That's the other thing, fill the time. Sometimes it's like the AV team know that something's not right, the slides are glitching. You just got to trust them, but then you've got to fill the time. You can't go, okay, we'll just wait 5 minutes. Like
it's a great thing to have up your sleeve, those discussion questions that you can throw to in the event that something goes wrong.
Absolutely.
I think I love that. And I feel like being able to, one thing I did this speaking gig that like everything that could have gone wrong went wrong.
Yep.
Like everything. And like hindsight was, I think sometimes practicing of the over-reliance on tech is also a drawback. So I was like over-relying on the tech, and like hindsight should have just scrapped that in that moment. I should have just gone, no slides, no nothing.
Yeah.
Get a whiteboard. I'm just going to draw it. We're going to make it heaps more creative.
Yeah.
And now it was a good process because now I feel like any workshop or any keynote, having that up my sleeve to go, I actually feel confident enough now that if slides didn't work, I've practiced that in an alternative method to be able to go, we are going to freestyle.
Yes.
Like not feeling tied to the tech
Totally.
in the event that like everything does go wrong or blow up. But I also like the simplicity of not drawing attention to it and saying, hey, here's a big question I want you to answer, and it buys you 2 minutes to sort out whatever the issue is.
Yeah, exactly. And I think as well, I said before, like leading the room is also what you're doing, whether, we're aware of it or not as a speaker. Because when something does go wrong, and I've been in rooms before where the presenter's like, oh, that shouldn't look like that, or, and all of a sudden like the whole energy shifts and everyone's like, oh, like this is getting awkward. Where's this going to go? Like, I think, again, just being as relaxed as possible, which is so easy to say, but as we've talked about, it is a vulnerable activity when you're up the front. Everyone's eyes are on you and how you're going to respond. But just being calm and being kind as well, like to the AV team, to the MC, or to yourself as well, in those, especially in the post-presentation, like debrief that you have with yourself about how it went and what you could have done differently. But just being calm and being relaxed is so important, because then the audience are calm and relaxed and they're following your lead. And I know because I've sat in audiences before where the speaker's stressed and all of a sudden I feel stressed as the audience member.
So contagious.
It's so contagious. So I think as much as you can, just being relaxed and chill, even if inside you're like, oh my gosh, my slides aren't working and this was so important. And then like you said, having backup plans up your sleeve, activities, or getting the whiteboard out, or different modes of delivery that then you can still deliver to them something of value, even if it's not what you intended to deliver. And I do a lot of media commentary, and that's the thing as well. When someone asks a question like on live TV that I didn't prepare for, obviously you can't just go, I don't know. You have to
no comment.
I
plead the fifth.
Exactly. Like you have to take it somewhere that is of value. And even if that's not what you had planned, like again, your audience don't know where you were going to take it. Only you know that. So just giving something of value in that moment because you don't have any other option is really what I'm saying.
I think it's a great call about the energy of the room, and you lead that energy. Has there been times, Ash, where you've got into, you're speaking at a conference or something, you've walked up and you felt the room's energy is not good?
Yeah,
and
so many.
How have you reset it? Like what have you done to set the tone or shift it?
Yeah. I mean, I will say sometimes there is no like shifting. It's just a hard audience. And I will say, like I remember doing a LinkedIn post about this a few months ago where it's like the resting bored face or the resting bitch face, where it's like, you think you're on the stage and people are watching you and they're just deadpan and you're like trying to give as much as you can and you're telling stories and you're cracking jokes and they're just like, and you're like, they hate me, they hate this, I hate me now. Like, it's just like, it's a spiral. But then afterwards they're like, I loved it. And you're like, what?
Tell your face.
Yeah, exactly.
Tell your face you loved it.
Exactly. So I think the message would be like, yes, you're leading the energy and you have to respond and give more. And that's the hard thing as well about a virtual presentation, which I do a lot of as well. Not nowhere near as much as obviously during COVID, but it's really hard because you can't feedback off the audience. And so, yeah, that's definitely one thing to keep in mind. Like just don't be too discouraged if the audience aren't giving it to you, the energy. But what I try and do, again, humour is my kind of like secret weapon. And just the more you do it, the more you, like you said, you have strategies you learn by necessity, like when you have to have something up your sleeve to deploy, or I'm like, okay, I've got a joke that I'm going to tell or a story that isn't in the slides that I wasn't going to, but like this audience need it or this presentation needs it. I think the other thing with visual storytelling is if you've got a slide that, has only got one stat on it, I could spend 5 minutes there, or I could spend 1 minute. Whereas like if you've got a slide with lots of text or lots of content, it feels, you can tell when someone's like, oh, we don't have time for that, rush. Whereas as a visual storyteller, you're more in control of the time if you've just got like a slide and I'm like, oh, okay, like the speaker before me ate into my session, or they asked me to cut it down, or like this audience are not vibing like XYZ, so I'm just going to skip over that without them knowing that I skipped over it. So they're just like little things, because I guess we've all been in situations where you're like, oh, and like the speaker's like, oh, I was going to talk about that, but we didn't have time. And you're like, well, I didn't know that as the audience, but now I do, because you've just let me into your like running commentary. So you've got to have a bit of like don't let them into the inner workings of what's going on sometimes.
The other thing I think is interesting, they feel the rush.
Exactly.
And it doesn't feel, I'm going back to you, you're leading that room. And so even if you feel the rush, we've all had those things where you get up and they're like, oh, we're running a bit under time.
Yeah.
And I actually had it was a really good gig, a beautiful speaking gig with an amazing conference, and it's probably one of my favourite speaking gigs last year. And the time got cut into, it was meant to be an hour, ended up only being 40 minutes. And you think about 20 minutes of your content being cut on the day, like 5 minutes before.
Yeah.
And I was like, shit, what am I going to take out? I love all this stuff.
Yeah.
I love all of it. But you don't want them to know they're not getting, like you can't just jam it in and go, well, I'm going to get through it. I'm just going to move faster. It's like, no, you have to eliminate stuff.
Yeah.
Do you have a process where, because sometimes when it's something that's interesting to you, we care. Sometimes I'm like, I care about all this stuff, but how do you work out what's of most value to the audience? And I don't know, is it Ernest Hemingway that said, kill your darlings? Who was that? Some writer. Mm-hmm. I don't know who it was.
I don't know either, but
it's the idea of, it's a writer of like, when you think something's really interesting because you're nerding out on a particular topic.
Totally.
But the average person's just like, I don't care that much about that.
Totally.
But how do you work out and discern what is the most, if you've only got a short window of time, like I imagine with your TED Talk, you've got 17 minutes.
Yeah.
How do you work out what's most important to that audience, not what's most important to you?
Yeah. And it's a big question as well for any people listening who are researchers, because like even I do training with people who deliver research, and it's like, you've been in that project, you've been running that project for months, and it's the time has come to deliver the insights, and you're like, you've been invested, you've been living that, breathing it, and you're like, everything's important. And so I think there's a couple of things. First of all, I would like do a process of refinement. So like I try and do different blocks of presentation prep, even because I've got, slides that I repeat, but every presentation is different. So I'll have like a pre-briefing. I always have a briefing with the conference organizer or the client. Before that, I might put together like a rough structure of the slides, and then a couple of days later have the briefing and I inquire, who is the audience, what do they care about, what is their role, demographics of the audience, all of those insights to go, okay, what can I say that's most helpful to them? And then I go and refine that even more, again, based on the time allocation and that sort of thing. So I think it is that process of sitting with something, going away and then coming back and going, okay, no, like what am I going to be ruthless and cut out or minimize, knowing that they don't care as much as I do about all these things. And sometimes it does take like presentations, and it's good and easy for me to do it because I'm doing it all the time, where I'll go, they need to know everything, and this insight is so interesting, and then I'll present it and I'm like, oh, like there was no feedback about that. There was like no one really like took photos, because the other thing is, a good gauge for me is when people put their phone up and take a photo of the content, and I'm like, this is landing, they want to revisit this, okay, awesome. And if something doesn't really translate, I'm like, okay, that's being taken out. Like mental note on the plane home, take it out if that's like a template for the next time I get asked to talk on that topic for 30 minutes or whatever it might be. So that process of refinement, but sometimes it just does take trial and error, because you think it's really important, but they might not see that.
I even just thinking about so much of the art of speaking is like the practice, right? And you mentioned like you've got pre-keynote rituals, but you also said the post debrief with yourself.
Yeah.
Talk to me about like when it hasn't gone well, how you don't fall into self-criticism, beating yourself up. Because I like even how you said on the plane on the way home, I'll take that slide out. It's a bit more transactional. You're not beating yourself up about it.
Yeah.
How do you handle failure, and what do you do to learn from it?
Yeah, it's a big question, and was definitely something that I had to do a lot early on, when I was kind of just getting my sea legs and getting the hours that they talk about with professional speaking. You've just got to do the hours. You've got to get on stages and you've got to fail and you've got to work out what doesn't work and what you love and what your audience love and what they don't love, and then, amend that. I think reviewing that is really important, but also being able to release the ones that don't go well. And there is that element of grace for yourself. You've got to have it, and knowing that not every presentation will be the best one you ever do. And even still, I guess I'm at a point now, thankfully, where even something where I go, I'll have people in my life, my husband, how did it go? And I'm like, oh, wasn't my best. And I still get great feedback about that, even though I know, or I felt like it wasn't good, but people, again, they're not comparing the other 49 talks I've done that year, with that. But I'm obviously, I know. So I think there is just that element of you've just got to release and look for those learning moments. And like I said, sometimes I've still got to get better at this as well, where maybe I'm too much in the release because I'm like, oh, that was not the best, or these are the learnings, but I just think that in the moment, but I don't actually, doesn't translate. You've actually got to, it's almost like just jotting down the action points beyond that. And journaling is always helpful as well, just to get out or speak to someone in your life that cares about you and what you spoke about, just to kind of vent about how it went, and then being able to actually release it. But then also, being able to learn from the good things, and the things that didn't work will obviously make the next presentation you do even better.
We're going to go to a break, and when we come back, I want to talk about the pre-game rituals. What do you do beforehand? How do you prepare? So we'll get to that in just a moment.
Do you want to grow in your career? Are you after a fresh start or some inspiration? Or perhaps you're in a career crisis? The book Sort Your Career Out and Make More Money by Shelley Johnson and Glenn James is such a great resource at any stage in your career. It will give you practical strategies for things like getting a promotion, making more money, moving into a leadership role, taking career risks, or if it's time to quit your job, and so much more. You can find Sort Your Career Out and Make More Money wherever good books are sold, or via the link in the podcast show notes. It's also available as an audiobook.
What are the rituals beforehand? Before you get up to speak, what are you doing?
The pre-game, which is
pre-game.
Not the classic pre-game,
pre-game.
No alcohol in the pre-game. Funnily enough, I learnt this the hard way, and everyone's different probably with this, but I try not to eat within an hour and a half of delivering a talk. I once did that, and I just felt so ill. And one person who is a speaker in my life said, you can't process the adrenaline and the food at the same time, which is why you get a bit of a upset stomach or whatever, or if there's just a lot going on in your body, because the adrenaline does spike, and that's great for when you need to get up and perform essentially. But I think it is it's different people, I don't do the power pose, but I have heard that kind of you've got to get into that space of getting confident. I mean, for me, often it's in an interstate presentation where I'm in a hotel room by myself. And so there is that element of vocal warm up, because you don't want the first thing you say that day to be, good morning, everyone, at a conference. So getting that vocal warm up right, and doing that, and just doing whatever you need to do to get into the zone, whether that's quiet time, reviewing your notes. I was always one of those people in school. This takes me back to when I was studying, where I was I don't need to review the notes on the day of the exam, because that's going to stress me out. Do you know what I mean? If it's I don't want to be oh, I don't know this, and then all of a sudden my whole mindset shifts into you're not going to do well, this isn't going to go. It's just it's doing it the day before and then being at peace with how whatever that is, where it is at, and then what happens on the day. So and sometimes I will review notes, because obviously it's a lot different what we're talking about now than to doing it, a high school exam or a uni exam, but just trying to, get your mindset right. I mean, I love music, so I often have music playing all the time, in the bathroom getting ready and all that stuff, just to get me into that space where I'm ready to go and perform. Because as much as it sounds interesting, I think keynote speaking is performing, and getting just all the practical stuff, drinking enough water and making sure, checking with the AV team and just doing whatever you need to do to feel confident. I think that's the key.
When you talk about practicing, so can you talk us through what practice would look like? Let's say you're doing a keynote for the first time, relatively new content. What will you do to practice that presentation?
Yeah. I do run it through, with a timer, first of all, to see how long I think sections are going to work. I know that it's super cringe for a lot of us to listen to ourselves back, but I do find that either recording just the voice only or recording visually and then watching that back can help you find, like if you're using crutch words that you're not aware of, like the ums and the ahs and the likes, you can just find those points. Or just practicing it in general will make, like if you're saying it, it will make you realize where the weak points are in a talk, especially for me when it's data driven. Like even if I'm putting in a new section into a keynote that I do all the time, I look at the slides at my desk on the laptop going, yeah, I know that. And then I get on stage and I have had these moments where I'm like, I don't know what this slide is saying.
Like, what is it?
I'm like, what is my key message here? I don't know. So I don't know how they're going to know.
And what do? Do you just make stuff up?
Yeah. You have to.
You just got to BS your way through.
Yeah. And just say some overarching thing about the slide and all the stats. It's like, oh yeah, and as you'll see, the generational trends here are really showing some key challenges. Move on. Like
as you can see, key challenges here. Next slide.
Yeah, no, because you have to. Otherwise, like you're just talking in circles.
Do you know what I have found? Like one of my weak points is when I do that, where I'm like, oh shit, I don't know what this is about.
Mm-hmm.
That one of my speaking trip ups is I'll just waffle on about that.
Yeah.
Instead of just moving on.
Yeah.
If I don't know an answer, I'll because I'm a verbal processor, blah, 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 and it'll go on and I'm just like, just friggin' move on.
I do that in question time. So that's probably more for me where that comes out.
The waffly part, but it's like such a risk point. And I find people who I really admire the way they speak, unlike the way that I will talk and rave on, is they'll pause.
Yeah.
And they'll sit and even say, hey, oh, that's a really good question. I'll just sit with it for just a sec.
Mm-hmm.
You know who does it a lot in her podcast is Brene Brown. Do you hear the long pauses where she'll just pause? And I'm always like, I love that.
Shows a confidence, doesn't it?
100%.
Rather than just being the fear of going, oh, like I've been invited into this space because I'm viewed as an expert in X, Y, Z, and I can't let them know that I don't have an exact answer because then I'll be viewed as a fraud. Like I wonder what's underlaying all of that. It's turned into a therapy session.
I love it. But yeah, I do think as well, like it does show a big level of confidence to just sit in the silence for a moment. But I feel like it elevates people's respect for you when you do that.
Yeah.
There was somewhere else I wanted to go with this, and I'm mindful of our time. Speaking of me waffling, I don't want to talk. But pre-game, so you practice, you'll listen back. Do you ever practice in front of anyone? Like will you practice in front of people to get their feedback on it?
I haven't done a lot of that. But one of there's definitely things, I'm not sure if you have these as well, moments in your career or even your speaking career where there were like really important presentations. Like the TED Talk for me was definitely one of those where I still use like some of the phrases that I learnt for that talk to this day, where I can go a bit more on autopilot, which is hard to do because the content that we do is always changing. Like there are a few keynote speakers or professional speakers who just have a talk and they practice it and they learn it. I think that's where it's easier to have, you know where you're going to pause. You know where the story's going to be. You know where the hard-hitting part is, where the self-deprecating part is. Whereas as a content speaker, like I'm always bringing in new things and there's still structures that those sit in, but it's quite fluid, which I think makes it engaging and relevant to the audience. But with the TED Talk, that was very like every word mattered in that short moment, and you couldn't have any notes, couldn't have any fallback monitor, slide, presenter view. So I did practice that one a lot in front of my husband. And even just to get the confidence, because it's easy to practice to a wall, but like it's harder to practice in front of someone that you love and you respect their opinion of, even if they're always going to support you. It just makes it feel a bit more real, I think, to actually
do it in front of someone.
Open you up to feedback. Yeah.
And also like it's awkward. And I kind of think it's good to have the awkwardness of practice. And I know two parts that if you are vehemently opposed to practicing, rehearsing, like recording yourself, whatever that looks like. One thing that I find really useful, Ash, is like for any new talk, my intro and my close, those two for me are so freaking important.
Yeah.
Because once you're in the flow, that middle bit, you usually can vibe. Like I think if you know your content enough, you can vibe that out and take it in the right way. But how you begin and how you end are the key parts people remember.
Yeah.
And so I still will like verbally rehearse and get feedback from people around that intro and that outro.
Yeah.
And like be it the opening story. And I sometimes would practice that story like 15 times to just go, I feel like I've perfected that part, and then the end part. Do you have things that help you with both the intro and the close? And actually, it might even go to the close because I think we know, like people know about the introduction being really important. Those first, like that first minute where they're either in or they're out. Mm-hmm. How do you do a strong close?
It's a great question, and I think it's something that I still see other people speak, and I'm like, wow, like that close was powerful and impactful, and I'm like, that's probably something that I am keen to keep developing because, yeah, you're right. I think the intro, and I was going to say just with the intro, this is probably more so for anyone who's newer to public speaking in your role, but there was 4 things that I learned, 4 C's that I learned when I was first starting out that really helped me, especially because when I started out, I was like in my mid-20s, young, blonde person coming into boardrooms at the start and then bigger stages, and people were like, who are you and what have you got to say? Like,
yeah, why should I listen to you?
Exactly. And so I was taught about the 4 C's of a strong introduction, which is connection, credibility, context, and then content. And even just that ability, like you can do all of that in like 30 seconds. A really brief one would be, good morning, everyone. My name's Ashley Fell. I'm delighted to be here today. I'm a social researcher and futurist. I've been working on this project. We're going to talk about these 3 things today. Launch. And if you're starting out, I think even that credibility piece, like we spoke about with the humour, where it's like it gives you as well and your audience that confidence that you're the right person in the room for that. And I've done some presentation training before I got to go all over rural Australia, which is when I first started, which is ironic because I didn't have that much experience in it. And I was teaching nurses in the ICU how to present their research to doctors, which was a really interesting experience because of the stereotype of doctors and you know, the confidence and things like that. But anyway, I think those were just things that I have still relied on today. And you can, again, once you get that, I guess, hours up or a bit of practice, you can then go, okay, now I'm going to really focus in on the connection. And that could be, instead of opening with a good morning, my name is Ashley Fell, it's going to be opening with a story. And that's what I did with the TED Talk, where before I introduced myself, I opened with a story about a very hungry caterpillar because my whole session was on storytelling. And I've done keynotes overseas where I start with like a big statement or a stat and then pause and then launch into like who you are, or sometimes I've seen some speakers don't even introduce themselves because the MC's done that. So there's different ways you can play the introduction for sure. But in terms of the ending, I definitely think my key at the moment is I'll end on a couple of application points. And then I have a quote that I end almost every presentation on, which I think is that kind of, it shows that it's the mic drop moment, so to speak. Like, 'cause sometimes, again, I fall into the trap too where you're just kind of waffling on to try and wrap up all the things I've spoken about. Whereas I do have a quote, which I love, and it kind of sums up my whole presentation, and that's where I kind of end it. I can share the quote.
What is the quote?
Helpful. The quote is, the strength of an organisation comes from its stories and its traditions, but the future of an organisation rests in its relevance and innovation. And it's kind of tying up that everything I've spoken about in the talk, which would be generational trends, future trends, innovation, technology, but not discounting people, especially older generations, who are coming at this with legacy organisations and history, and I want to pay homage to that, but also the need for that. And that tension. I love exploring tensions, like where 2 opposing things can be true at the same time, that history and legacy is important, but so is new and innovation. So I find that is, and then everyone's phone goes up and they take a photo and then I say thank you very much and then it's the applause.
Yeah, and you don't say, and that's it.
Yeah.
We never say, that's it, that's all.
No. Even just a thank you very much. Like that is better than like, and it's just signaling that it's finished. Because sometimes people are like, are you still going? Oh, that seemed like the end before, but now it's not. And
it's really powerful to think about that ending. I think that's where we focus so much on how we start and not on how we close. But I would say both are equal weight.
Yeah.
I mean, the start is I think often about your own nerves. If you do that really well, it lowers your nerves, which changes the whole tone of that presentation. But the close is like such a missed opportunity for so many people. And they'll be like, especially if it's like, let's say it's a town hall, you're presenting something to all staff. And you go through and you really focus on the content, blah, 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 blah. Oh, cool. So that's it from me. Thank you. Even the tone of the thank you, like the way that you said it, thank you very much. Full stop.
Yeah.
Walk off. Like it's something really like confident about that ending that I think gets overlooked. I've got time for one more question, and this is like someone listening who's not confident, gets really nervous. What strategies do you have that they could practically take to manage nerves?
I do think those 4 C's of that introduction are a really, they help me, and I lent on those. I had those in every single opening of my presentations, probably the first 2 years of my speaking career. I just think, again, it's that repeatability, and it's a framework that you can rely on and that you can then get confident in and then start to evolve and massage and tweak and refine. But I think having that framework is helpful. I was actually at a professional development sort of session recently, and it was interesting to hear. It was a few other professional speakers in the industry talking about how they structure content, and it's very basic, but having a good, strong introduction, having 3 main points, and having a strong ending. Like, it's so basic, but even just if you're starting out, having a structure that you just fill in to start with, and then doing that rather than going, oh, I've got all these things, how am I going to fit all of that into a presentation? And I think, again, like you mentioned, so much of it is that what we think is crucial, but the audience won't see as relevant. So just forcing yourself to kind of cut down and refine, I think, is really important. And just like practicing, obviously, is always good as well, whether that is, like I said, just to the wall or to someone else, or recording yourself and listening it back. I know that can also help with retention if it's new content that you're trying to learn. But just getting out there and trying and giving it a go, but being okay like with it not going so well, because knowing that you'll be able to improve on it from there, and knowing that, you know, everyone who's gone before you has had to climb those obstacles as well and get over that ego, but then the humility and the adrenaline, like it's all kind of working together, but just doing it is so helpful.
Did you know, just as you were saying that then, do you know Anna Hutchins?
I do.
So mutual friend of ours, as we just established. I remember Anna, we worked together back in the day, and she is an amazing speaker. Like she has this way of speaking that I remember when I first saw her do a bit of a talk at the organisation we were working in, and I was like, I want to grow up. I want to be like her. Because she's hilarious, like super funny, but super deep as a person, very smart, but very like the depths and the rawness and the realness. Everything that I remember thinking, I want to be like her in how she speaks. And I remember her saying to me afterwards, I talked to her about a presentation she did. And I was like, how did you get so good at that? And she did a huge, big like speaker training over a year. And I remember she said the biggest thing she got out of that training was just the weight of understanding the weight of everyone's time. And so she said that when she gets up to speak, if there's 200 people and she's speaking for an hour, 200 hours of people's time that she's taking. And she's like, that is a weight that I need to carry as someone who's speaking, and I need to do their time justice. And so if I'm not prepared to rehearse, to listen back to my stuff, to practice my little heart out, I'm not worthy of the 200 hours.
Yeah,
and
so
like
good.
I felt when she said that, it was such a game changer for me, because it was what sometimes you can feel like, well, because I know my stuff, it's fine for me to just get up and talk about it. It's like, no. It's not just knowing your stuff. It's how do you communicate your stuff in a way that connects with an audience and says, your time matters. If you're going to listen to me, I'm going to put the work in to making it really valuable for you. And I think when this was so long ago, like over 10 years ago, it changed my whole perspective on like just doing uncomfortable things. Like listening, I will still listen back to every single podcast we do. And it's awful to do that.
Yeah.
But it's like in service of a listener to go, I'll tweak that next time. I won't do that. Or maybe this question would have been better to ask or whatever. And I think if you care about the audience, you're going to put the work in. And so don't take that responsibility lightly. If you're listening right now and you're hesitant to do the voice memos or watch yourself on Zoom presenting back or presenting a dry run to a friend, if you want to be good at this, you have to practice. I think you have to take that weight of the time that people are investing seriously. So I love it because I think like you've done 10,000 hours on this stuff and that's why you're so successful at what you do. That's why people in big accounting practices are like, she was the best. She was the best at Xerocon because you've done so much time. You take the weight of everyone in that audience's time seriously. So I want to say thank you for spending your time today talking to all of our beautiful listeners. If they want to get in touch with you, what's the best way?
Just Ashley Fell on LinkedIn. I would love to connect with anyone. That's where I house a lot of the content and learnings and like you, Shell, try and be real about that as well and a bit humorous. So please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming all the way to our studio in Newcastle from Sydney today. So good to hang out.
My pleasure.
If you enjoyed this episode, share it with a friend who needs to hear it and give us a 5-star rating on Spotify or Apple, wherever you listen. Thanks for hanging out.
If you have enjoyed the show today, forward it to a friend, colleague, or family member who you may think it would benefit. Shelley's business Boldside provides leadership training for a variety of different businesses. To learn more, visit boldside.com.au. If you would like to book Shelley to speak at one of your events, please reach out to the team via moneypodcast.com.au.